Chapter 1, as agreed, I'll arrange a new identity for you to leave, plus a sum of money. Are you sure you want to go? Genevieve Stafford stared at the photos of her husband entwined with another woman, her heart long since plunged into an icy abyss. I'm sure. The person on the other end of the line paused before replying, all right, but don't be too heartbroken. Your husband getting together with my wife, it's like two peas in a pod, rotten ones. Worst case, we abandoned souls can pair up and infuriate that wretched couple. As evening approached, Genevieve prepared a meal tailored to Sebastian Harrington's tastes, just as she always did. She lit candles, waiting for her husband to return home from work. She waited from 7 in the evening until 10 at night. The front door remained still. Silence reigned outside. Genevieve pulled out her phone, checked the time, and scrolled through her contacts. Her finger lingered on the entry hubby for a moment before finally swiping down to call the company's security desk. Is Mr. Harrington still working late in the office? I didn't want to disturb him. I ordered some late-night snacks. Could you please help me send them up later? The security guard recognized her voice and replied respectfully. Director G, Mr. Harrington left about 2 hours ago. He probably had a social engagement. Genevieve replied with an unruffled "oh" and added, okay, thank you for your trouble. For the rest of the night, Genevieve kept her eyes glued to her phone, but no message came from Sebastian. Normally, he would have informed her beforehand if he had plans. Tonight was different, perhaps because the person he was with was very important. Genevieve looked at the table of cold dishes. Expressionless, she stood up and scraped everything into the trash bin before tidying up and heading upstairs to bed. Sebastian Harrington did not return home that night. The next morning, hearing the sound of an engine in the driveway, Genevieve instinctively got out of bed, threw a robe over her pajamas, and hurried downstairs. The man was just opening the door. She went to greet him, opened the shoe cabinet, took out his slippers, and placed them on the floor. Did you work all night? You have dark circles under your eyes. Sebastian mumbled a noncommittal changed his shoes, and turned around naturally. Genevieve took off his jacket for him. Go take a shower first, get some proper sleep. Sebastian was accustomed to her meticulous care. Genevieve thought he would go straight upstairs, but today he didn't. The man stood still, his complex gaze lingering on her face. Holding his jacket, Genevieve touched her own face quizzically. What's wrong? Nothing, the man averted his gaze. I'll talk to you later. A premonition stirred within Genevieve. She smiled and said, all right. It seemed many things wouldn't require her to break the deadlock first. Sure enough, half an hour later, Sebastian placed a divorce agreement on the table. I'm sorry, she's back. You can ask for whatever you want. I'll do my best to satisfy you. Genevieve certainly knew who she was. Sylvia Vance, Sebastian's childhood sweetheart. They grew up together. Sebastian had practically worshipped the ground she walked on. If Sylvia had asked for the moon, he probably would have tried to figure out a way to get it. But their innocent romance only lasted until high school. Sylvia went abroad for love, leaving Sebastian alone in the country, suffering for a long time, unable to move on. Seeing Genevieve lower her eyes without speaking, Sebastian assumed the news had dealt her a heavy blow. He said gravely, don't worry, it takes a month to get the divorce finalized. I'll come home as usual during this month to give you time to adjust. Genevieve took a deep breath, flexing her fingers before picking up the pen and signing her name on the divorce agreement. Sebastian watched her slightly trembling hand, seemingly feeling a pang of guilt. He pressed his lips together but ultimately said nothing, taking the agreement to the study. Genevieve watched the man's back. He hadn't taken 2 steps before picking up his phone, seemingly texting someone, a relaxed and happy smile playing on his lips. She averted her gaze, picked up her own phone, and once again dialed Julian Sterling's number. He asked me for a divorce. Let's proceed as you said. Get me a new identity. I want to go to North City. Julian chuckled softly. Going so far? If you're going to make a clean break, make it clean, right? Sand you can't hold, better just let it scatter. Hanging up, Genevieve felt a wave of relief. She opened her notes app and set a divorce countdown timer. In 1 month, she could take the money from both Sebastian and Julian, leave this place, and start a carefree new life as a wealthy woman. Chapter 2, since the divorce was decided, Genevieve certainly wouldn't stay at the company. She had poured a lot of effort into Harrington Corp before leaving. She wanted to ensure a complete handover. She left for the office shortly after Sebastian, went straight to her desk, organized her current tasks, and expedited anything that could be dealt with quickly. One document required Sebastian's personal signature. Genevieve, strictly professional, took the file to the CEO's office. Just as she raised her hand to knock, the door opened from the inside. A woman dressed in an exquisite Chanel suit stood there, holding a coffee cup. Seeing Genevieve, Sylvia Vance's eyes widened in surprise, then she smiled apologetically. "Oh, it's Genevieve. Look at me. I've been back for days, so busy keeping Seb company, I completely forgot you work here too. Did I startle you? Sorry, I didn't tell you beforehand." But even if she hadn't said anything, Genevieve had known immediately. The day Sylvia returned, Sebastian had booked an entire club for her welcome back party, even creating a giant heart-shaped floral arrangement with roses at the entrance. Everyone in their social circle envied them. Photos and videos flooded social media feeds. It was impossible for Genevieve not to know. It was at that moment she understood she could never replace Sylvia in Sebastian's heart. Fortunately, this absurd marriage was about to end. Genevieve smiled calmly. "It's all right. Knowing now isn't too late. Are you looking for Seb?" Sylvia stepped closer to Genevieve, blinking. "He might be unavailable right now. If you have something, you can tell me, and I'll pass it on for you." Her suggestive tone was undoubtedly meant to tell Genevieve how intimate their relationship was, what they had just been doing. Genevieve remained composed. "It's work-related. If he's not available, I'll come back later." She turned to leave. "Wait." Sylvia suddenly reached out to grab her, somehow stumbled, and the coffee cup fell to the floor, shattering. The remaining coffee splashed all over Sylvia. "Genevieve." She looked flustered, staring at her soiled clothes, her eyes quickly turning red. "If you're unhappy, you can just say so. I thought of you as a friend. I just wanted to ask you to dinner." "How could you?" Before she could finish, a figure emerged from the office. Sebastian looked at Sylvia's disheveled state and addressed Genevieve with a grim face. "Genevieve, if you have any dissatisfaction, take it out on me. What's the point of bullying Sylvie?" Bullying. He didn't even ask, just jumped to that conclusion. Genevieve looked into his sharp eyes, feeling a pang in her heart as if pierced by something. But it was almost over. There was nothing worth minding. She stated calmly, "Miss Vance wasn't careful." "Yes, Seb." Sylvia clutched Sebastian's arm, seemingly afraid he would clash with Genevieve, biting her lip and whispering, "It was my fault. I wasn't careful. Don't blame Genevieve." Her words only made Sebastian's gaze towards Genevieve darken further. "Genevieve, don't exhaust the last shred of goodwill I have for you. Get back to where you came from, and don't come back until you've thought things through." After saying this, he protectively led Sylvia back into the office, slamming the door shut with a loud bang and locking it from the inside. Genevieve stood there for a moment, finding the situation somewhat laughable. Think things through before coming back to see him? Of course, she had thought things through. Any affection she had left for Sebastian Harrington was now completely exhausted. Chapter 3, Genevieve sighed, looking at the file in her hand. She supposed she'd have to go back to her office first and try again later. Surprisingly, however, she encountered Sylvia Vance again in the break room not long after. Sylvia had changed into a different outfit, the latest Dior suit, equally exquisite and expensive. She greeted Genevieve as if nothing had happened. "Genevieve, don't you have an assistant? Why are you making coffee yourself?" Genevieve murmured and casually returned the question. "Is Miss Vance an assistant? Why can't you seem to finish making coffee?" "You." Sylvia was stunned, momentarily speechless. Just as she finally formulated a retort, Genevieve interrupted her dispassionately. "Miss Vance, there's no need to pretend in front of me. I wanted to say, you don't need to target me. I'm not your enemy." Sebastian must have told her about the divorce immediately. Sylvia paused, then gave a half smile. "I never considered you an enemy either. A woman like you, with no family background, an orphan whose parents died young. You should be grateful you didn't starve, right? You and he are simply not from the same world. Take the clothes I wear, for instance. He knows what to order for me without me even asking. Easily thousands of dollars for limited editions. As for what you wear, to him, it's no different from trash." Sylvia crossed her arms, making no effort to hide her scorn. "The clothes are, and so is the person. You were just a temporary novelty. You mean absolutely nothing." Genevieve was indifferent to luxury goods and wasn't particularly bothered by her words, but being insulted to her face wasn't something she'd just swallow. She looked at Sylvia for a long moment before saying, "So, you were just a temporary novelty to Julian Sterling too. No wonder Miss Vance can empathize with me so well." "You." Sylvia's face flushed red and white, but ultimately she couldn't come up with a rebuttal. Muttering, "I'm nothing like you," she picked up her coffee and left. But Genevieve suspected this encounter might make Sylvia resent her even more. She felt a pang of regret. There was no need to get caught up in these verbal spars. Genevieve had once been the daughter of a wealthy family, but at 15, disaster struck. Both her parents committed suicide, leaving her alone and adrift in the world. That was when Julian Sterling appeared. If Julian hadn't supported her continued existence, she might not have survived. So later, when Julian asked for her help, she didn't refuse. "There's this woman hitting on me lately. I quite like her, but she might just be clinging to me out of novelty and a desire for conquest. If she's going to be my woman, I can't watch her trying to have it both ways. There's this persistent guy hanging around her, very annoying. Go win him over. Once Sylvia makes a clean break with him, you can withdraw. Whatever you want afterward, I'll grant it." Julian's kindness was like a mountain to Genevieve. Even without the final promise, she would have done it for his happiness. She just hadn't expected that pursuing Sebastian Harrington would take 7 years. Initially, Sebastian had been extremely resistant to her. But Genevieve was relentless, thoughtful in every way. She didn't move Sebastian, but she moved herself first. Genevieve realized she had genuinely fallen in love with this man. Finally, on the day Sylvia left the country, Sebastian, drunk, cornered her outside a private room, his hot breath invasive. "Genevieve, you like me so much, then stay by my side forever." That night, they slept together for the first time. Julian had warned her, "Genevieve, be careful not to get burned playing with fire." But Genevieve had confidently assured him she could win Sebastian's heart away from Sylvia, leading to their bet. Now, it seemed she hadn't just lost, she had lost completely. She accepted it. Genevieve didn't know when Sylvia left the company. At 3 in the afternoon, just as she was about to start a department meeting, Sebastian stormed into her office. "Genevieve, I already said I'll compensate you as much as possible. Why do you keep provoking Sylvie?" Genevieve knew immediately. The drama queen had gone tattling again. "What did she tell you?" Sebastian paused slightly. "What?" I asked, "What did Miss Vance tell you?" Genevieve was busy preparing for the wrap-up meeting and wasn't in the mood to argue with him. "Whatever she said, it's my fault. Apologize to her for me, and please ask her to stay away from me in the future." Sebastian had never seen Genevieve like this. He assumed she was still angry about the divorce, acting recklessly out of spite. He reached out and grabbed the arm of the woman who was about to leave, his gaze complex, fixed on her face. "Genevieve, I know I wronged you, but can you please not be like this?" Genevieve tried to pull her hand away but couldn't. She let him hold it. "Like what?" "You." Sebastian's brow furrowed tightly. After a long pause, he finally said heavily, "The divorce proceedings are already underway. It's too late even if you disagree. Don't do these pointless things." Chapter 4, Genevieve desperately wanted to tell him that she didn't disagree, that it wouldn't be too late, that she actually wished time would speed up so she could leave this place of trouble immediately. But Sebastian didn't give her the chance. After delivering his harsh words, he hurried off to console his little sweetheart. Genevieve was happy for the peace, pouring all her energy into her work. For several consecutive days, she left early and returned late. At night, she stayed in the guest room, avoiding any encounters with Sebastian, nor did she care whether he came home or not. Finally, having dealt with all her pending tasks, Genevieve submitted her resignation to the HR department. Mrs. Davies from HR looked troubled. "Director G, don't you need Mr. Harrington's signature?" Signatures again. Genevieve thought of the last document, which Sebastian's assistant, Marcus Miller, had eventually gotten him to sign. But this time it was a resignation letter. Sebastian should be more willing, right? After much thought, Genevieve decided to use the same method. When she handed the resignation letter to Marcus, his surprise was palpable. Although Mr. Harrington now had Miss Vance by his side, Director G was, after all, his legitimate wife. "Are you really resigning?" Marcus's expression held not only sympathy for Genevieve, but also regret for losing a colleague. "If you leave, Mr. Harrington will lose his right-hand woman." Genevieve shook her head and told him, "Mr. Harrington already knows I'm leaving. Just give it to him, he'll sign it." Once divorced, she had no reason to stay here. Since Genevieve had put it that way, Marcus had no choice but to take the resignation letter to Sebastian. At that moment, Sebastian was on the phone with Sylvia, discussing where to have dinner. He glanced at Marcus and waved him over with the document. Marcus handed it over, watching helplessly as his boss signed his name without the slightest hesitation. Sebastian was even saying gently into the phone, "Out with the old, in with the new. If it's not suitable, don't force it." Marcus thought to himself, it seems Boss H has really made up his mind. He asked no further questions, picked up the signed document, and left the office. Genevieve immediately submitted the resignation to HR and completed all handover procedures. Carrying a box out of the building, she took several deep breaths, feeling like she was finally about to embrace freedom and bid farewell to those miserable days. Sebastian knew nothing about this. He only felt the office was terrifyingly quiet. The woman who used to pop in frequently with snacks and warm greetings had been completely silent these past few days. Genevieve had practically acted as his nutritionist before, brewing herbal teas and making fruit salads during breaks. Sebastian had a sensitive stomach, and she occasionally even baked soft bread in the break room. That afternoon, after having hot pot with Sylvia, Sebastian's stomach burned. He suddenly craved the tremella soup Genevieve used to make. He dialed the internal line and called Marcus. "Where's my wife?" Marcus paused. His wife? Didn't she leave this morning? Before he could answer, Sebastian pinched the bridge of his nose and added, "Never mind. Go tell her I'll have dinner with her tonight." He had brought up the divorce. Genevieve must be upset. Although she was usually calm, she wasn't incapable of throwing tantrums. Sebastian thought, "I have indeed spent more time with Sylvie these past few days. Since I promised to spend this last month properly, I should soothe Genevieve's emotions." Seeing that Sebastian seemed to have genuinely forgotten, Marcus finally couldn't help but speak up. "Boss H, Director G has already completed all handover procedures and officially resigned." Sebastian abruptly looked up. "What did you say?" The coldness in his eyes made Marcus's heart clench. He braced himself and said, "I gave you Director G's resignation application to sign yesterday." "Director G said you knew?" His voice trailed off. Sebastian wasn't listening anymore. He didn't know where his anger came from. Grabbing his jacket from the back of the chair, he strode out of the office. He sped home, braking sharply in the driveway. Sebastian closed his eyes, suppressing his agitated mood. When Genevieve used to throw tantrums at him before, she mostly voiced her dissatisfaction directly, continuing as usual whether he cared or not. This time, she had really outdone herself. Actually resigning. Was she banking on him coaxing her back? Sebastian's gaze darkened as he pushed open the car door and got out. However, the moment he stepped inside, the scene before him made him cast aside all other emotions. A surge of blood rushed to his head, and he blurted out, "What are you doing?" Genevieve hadn't expected him back at this hour. She glanced up at him, then handed the booklet she was holding to the bewildered housekeeper beside her. "You guys continue sorting. I need a word with Mr. Harrington." Sebastian frowned at the items, scattered on the floor, all gifts he had occasionally given Genevieve over the years when he was in a good mood. There were also some matching couple items she had insisted on buying when they were out together. Back then, he didn't know Sylvia would return, so Sebastian often indulged her. Matching laptops, shoes, hats, suitcases. Genevieve, like any ordinary young couple, liked those useless things. But after buying them, Sebastian had never touched them. He was used to his old things. His old laptop was many years old, a high school graduation gift from Sylvia. But not using them didn't mean he wanted to discard them. Sebastian looked at the mess on the floor, memories flooding back. He said coldly, "Genevieve, don't you think you owe me an explanation?" "Explain what?" "I'm just donating things I don't normally use." "It's nothing." Genevieve paused, her tone carrying a hint of mockery. "You never spared them a glance before. Don't tell me now, Mr. Harrington, that you can't bear to part with these few things. Scorned them before, now pretending to care?" Genevieve suddenly remembered the notebook Sebastian always used, still well preserved after 10 years because Sylvia had given it to him. Love and lack of love are truly obvious. Sebastian choked, a stifled anger caught in his chest. After a long moment, his voice came out cold and heavy. Then what's this about resigning? We had an agreement, Genevieve. Sylvie might have said a few words at most. She wasn't even angry with you. Do you really need to make such a scene over something so small? He still thought she was making a scene. Genevieve felt helpless, yet also somewhat amused. She looked seriously into Sebastian's eyes and said, word by word, "It has nothing to do with Sylvia Vance. It's because we are already divorced. I don't care what happens between you and her, and I don't want any further entanglement with you. Sebastian Harrington, as you wished, I will no longer love you." Chapter 5. It was rare to see such a blank expression on Sebastian Harrington's face. Perhaps because he had never heard Genevieve say words like, "don't love him," he couldn't accept it for a moment. The muscles in his jaw trembled slightly. He opened his mouth but said nothing. After a while, his expression finally turned ugly. "Genevieve, there's no need to say such meaningless things. Sylvie won't bother you. I already said I'd stay by your side this month, give you time to move on. Why deceive yourself?" He still didn't believe her. Genevieve genuinely laughed. "How about this, I move out? Once I finish packing, you can even let Sylvia Vance move in. I don't mind." Sebastian stared intently at Genevieve for a moment, as if trying to ascertain the truth in her words. After a long pause, his Adam's apple bobbed. His lowered brow revealed a hint of hidden darkness he himself hadn't noticed. "No need. Sylvie doesn't want to interfere between us. You don't have to test me repeatedly with words like that. I won't change my decision. There will only ever be Sylvie in my heart. Instead of doing pointless things, you should think about what else you want. Financially, I can compensate you as much as possible." Genevieve looked at his gloomy face, suddenly finding herself speechless. Just how much had she loved him before to make him harbor the illusion that she would absolutely never leave him? Sebastian didn't wait for her to say more. After finishing his piece, he turned and left. Probably going to find Sylvia Vance again, Genevieve thought, but it didn't matter. Actually, Sebastian's words just now reminded her. Since the man was being so generous, it would be impolite not to ask for something. Who would complain about having too much money? That afternoon, Genevieve selected 2 villas from Sebastian's extensive property portfolio, worth over $100 million USD combined. She immediately instructed her lawyer to handle the transfer paperwork and forwarded it to Marcus Miller for Sebastian to sign. Sebastian signed and fingerprinted the documents briskly. Capping his pen, he looked up at Marcus and asked, "Did she say anything else?" Marcus paused. "No, she must have run out of options." Sebastian curled his lip in a sneer. Probably read some toxic advice online, something like, "A man's heart is where his money is." Fine, let her vent her frustration. If she makes any other demands, just agree directly. Although, Genevieve had gone a bit too far this time, he needed to give her the cold shoulder for a bit longer. Otherwise, with over 20 days left, who knew what other stunts she might pull? Marcus looked at his boss's expression, wanting to say something but holding back. He really wanted to say that Mrs. Harrington didn't look upset at all. On the contrary, she looked radiant. But then again, this was a matter between husband and wife. It wasn't his place as an outsider to interfere too much. Marcus respectfully acknowledged the instructions and took the signed documents to Genevieve. Genevieve immediately listed the 2 villas with a real estate agent, requesting a quick sale. The price wasn't important, but she wanted the full amount paid up front and the transaction completed as soon as possible. Who would complain about having too much money? Those 2 villas could fetch at least $100 million USD. That evening, Genevieve received a text message from Sebastian. It said he wouldn't be back for the next 2 days, telling her to calm down, not to get stuck in a rut, and that they could still be friends after parting amicably. Genevieve stared at the message for 2 seconds, then chuckled softly. How had she never noticed before? This man's narcissism really reached a certain level. Out of sight, out of mind. She archived the chat and continued packing. Having lived in this house for 5 years, there was simply too much clutter. Genevieve sorted the important items into boxes, planning to throw everything else away. If you're going to make a clean break, make it clean. She didn't intend to leave any trace behind. Sebastian didn't return for 2 days. Genevieve was calmer than she had imagined. The feelings she thought would be hard to let go of were just that. This morning, just after tearing a page off the desk calendar, she suddenly received a call from Marcus Miller. Marcus couldn't reach Sebastian, but there was a very important contract that needed signing. The partner was pressing urgently. He had no choice but to call Genevieve. Genevieve paused. "What about Sylvia Vance? Have you asked her?" "I have. Miss Vance doesn't know where Mr. Harrington is either." Genevieve pondered for a moment, then decided to go over. Although her affection for Sebastian was gone, she had invested her efforts in the company too. Besides, the project Marcus mentioned was one she had previously been in charge of. Genevieve left the house and quickly drove to the company. The Harrington Corp office building was located right at a large intersection with heavy traffic. She checked her rearview mirror and turned on her left turn signal. Just as she turned the steering wheel twice, a sedan suddenly rushed from the side, colliding head-on with Genevieve's car. The massive impact deployed the airbag. Genevieve felt like a kite with a broken string. Her head spun as she watched helplessly as the car lost control, finally crashing hard into the green median strip. The other car was also badly damaged, thick smoke billowing from it, obscuring the view of the person inside. Genevieve managed to shake her head, feeling wetness on her face. She raised her hand and wiped it blood. Before she could react, a familiar figure suddenly appeared in her line of sight. The fear in Genevieve's heart seemed to subside slightly, and she eagerly tried to push the door open. However, just as her hand touched the door handle, she saw the man run straight towards the opposite car, his face etched with a panic and tension she had never seen before. "Sylvie!" He opened the door and carefully, painfully lifted the woman out. So, it was Sylvia Vance. Genevieve's hand, resting on the car door, slowly slid down. Her chest heaved erratically from excessive panic. She even forgot the pain. Her vision was filled only with that anxious face. "Sylvie, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have gone drinking without telling you. It's all my fault. Don't fall asleep. I'll take you to the hospital right now." Where's the car? Marcus caught up from behind, saying urgently, "Mr. Harrington, the accident needs to be assessed by the traffic police." "Assess what?" "I told you to get the car," Sebastian roared, his icy expression glancing towards Genevieve. "Dare to hit Sylvie? No matter who it is, I'll make them pay." Through the hazy smoke, Genevieve clearly saw the fury and killing intent in his eyes. She had thought Sebastian simply didn't love her, but had at least liked her once. Turns out, there really wasn't any feeling at all. In the face of Sylvia Vance, he could completely disregard her life or death. A self-mocking smile touched Genevieve's lips. The wound on her forehead finally registered, beginning to throb violently. The sensation spread through her nerves to her heart, almost suffocating her. After a while, the people opposite had already left. Just then, her phone rang. Genevieve struggled to pick up her phone and answer. "Julian?" As soon as she spoke, tears streamed uncontrollably down her face. Her low voice held a hint of grievance. I was in a car accident. Could you help me call an ambulance?" Julian paused, then waved his assistant over, putting the call on speaker. He said gravely, "Don't be afraid. Tell me your location. I'll send someone to pick you up immediately." Genevieve forced herself to stay conscious, relaying her address and current condition. The assistant immediately went to make arrangements after hearing the details. Julian's brow furrowed deeply. His calm, deep voice asked, "So, have you given up hope now?" Genevieve leaned weakly against the seatback. Her gaze swept over the wreckage outside. Many onlookers were taking photos with their phones. She murmured a soft "Ma'am, can you get me out of here quickly?" The man considered for a moment, then said word by word, "Yes, now is the chance. I will let you die in this car crash, disappear completely from Sebastian Harrington's world." Chapter 6. Sebastian frantically rushed Sylvia Vance to the hospital, personally attending to everything, accompanying her through all the checkups. Still worried, he summoned the hospital's most authoritative doctors, repeatedly emphasizing that nothing must happen to Sylvia. Marcus Miller finished the admission procedures and received a call from the traffic police department. His expression flickered slightly. After acknowledging the call, he hurried back to the hospital room. "Mr. Harrington, Mrs. Harrington, she? Why bring her up now?" Sebastian's brow furrowed tightly, giving Marcus no chance to continue. "I'll be at the hospital taking care of Sylvie for the next couple of days. Keep a close eye on things at the company." Don't contact me unless absolutely necessary. As for Genevieve, hadn't she already taken 2 villas to appease her anger? Besides, Sylvie was in an accident. If Genevieve didn't understand, she was being unreasonable. Thinking this, Sebastian said gravely, "Put her matter aside for now. Nothing is more important than Sylvie." With things said so clearly, Marcus could only swallow the words he was about to speak. It seems Mr. Harrington really doesn't care about his wife, but never mind. Mrs. Harrington had always treated him well. He should handle it himself. Sebastian stayed at the hospital for 3 days. He initially wanted Genevieve to bring him a change of clothes, but remembering they hadn't spoken in days, he decided to go back himself. Upon entering the house, the housekeeper was busy cleaning the living room. Somehow, Sebastian inexplicably felt the house was empty. He frowned, his gaze sweeping upstairs. "Where's my wife?" The housekeeper was slightly baffled by the question. "Mrs. Harrington? I don't know, sir. I've been here the past couple of days and no one's been home." "Not back." Sebastian's face turned cold. He figured Genevieve probably knew he was at the hospital with Sylvie and was throwing another tantrum. She really doesn't understand the situation. Since they were already divorcing, they were bound to separate eventually. He had offered to stay with her for a month out of consideration for their years of marriage. Did she actually think he would change his mind? Sebastian took out his phone and dialed Genevieve's number. "Sorry, the number you have dialed is switched off." Ha, she even turned off her phone. An indescribable irritation surged within him. Sebastian loosened his collar and strode upstairs. The second-floor hallway used to be filled with numerous plants. Genevieve had collected over time uncommon orchids, succulents, even difficult-to-grow lilies of the valley. But now all the shelves were empty, not even a leaf remaining. A vein throbbed in Sebastian's temple, a bad premonition grew stronger. He marched forward and kicked open the master bedroom door. The curtains weren't drawn. Bright sunlight flooded the room. A breeze blew through, making the room seem even more vast, quiet, and desolate. Everything was gone. The dressing table was bare of cosmetics. The bags and jewelry in the closets had vanished. After a long moment, Sebastian finally forced a heavy breath from his chest, but it couldn't dispel the fire in his eyes. He clenched his fist, inspecting every corner. The wardrobe clothes gone. The bathroom only one toothbrush left. Even the cabinet where she usually kept feminine products was completely empty. Sebastian suspected he might be dreaming, a dream where everything related to Genevieve had simply disappeared. He squeezed his eyes shut tightly, then opened them again. Nothing had changed. That woman, she just left without a word. Where did she go? How dare she? A furious rage surged within Sebastian, almost consuming his sanity. Impossible. Genevieve seemed aloof, but deep down she loved him to death. Just days ago, she was trying everything to win him back. How could she disappear so silently? She must be playing some trick again, waiting for him to come looking for her. Weren't those 2 villas the best proof? Sebastian calmed down slightly and turned to go downstairs. "Are you sure you haven't seen my wife even once?" His menacing appearance nearly startled the housekeeper. She looked at his bloodshot eyes and stammered, "No. But a few days ago, some people came to collect things, saying something about taking the madam's final belongings." She hadn't quite heard clearly at the time. Seeing they had the villa's code, she assumed they were people the madam had sent and didn't ask further questions. Sebastian sneered. "Final belongings? Well played, Genevieve. Your tricks are getting more elaborate." He ground his teeth, picked up his phone to call Marcus, and roared, "Get your ass over here now." 20 minutes later, Marcus Miller appeared frantically in the driveway. "Mr. Harrington? Where is Genevieve?" Sebastian's gaze was heavy, his cold voice seemingly laced with ice. "I remember you saying at the hospital that day that she contacted you." Marcus hadn't expected Sebastian to summon him so urgently because of Genevieve. He paused briefly, then said, "It wasn't Mrs. Harrington who contacted me." "Then who was it?" Sebastian gritted his teeth, his sharp gaze fixed on Marcus. "Don't think I don't know you and Genevieve are close privately." What, trying to cover for her? No wonder Marcus had often been unreachable these past few days. So Genevieve had called him away. "Marcus, don't forget whose man you are. Tell me right now where she went and what she asked you to hide. If you can't explain clearly, pack your things and get out immediately." These words baffled Marcus even more. Hadn't Mr. Harrington himself said not to bother him with matters concerning his wife? Marcus mulled it over for a long time before guessing that Sebastian still didn't know his wife had passed away. His expression became complicated. He struggled to speak. Mr. Harrington, the call that day was from the traffic police department. The car that collided with Miss Vance's was driven by Mrs. Harrington. Mrs. Harrington died at the scene. Chapter 7. Sebastian snapped his head up, looking at him. What did you say? The darkness in his eyes was so thick it made Marcus's heart pound. 3 days ago, the Wronghua project needed urgent signing, but I couldn't reach you, so I had to call Mrs. Harrington. I didn't expect Mrs. Harrington and Miss Vance to arrive at the same time, and then the accident at the entrance. The smoke was too thick at the time. I didn't pay attention to the license plate number. And certainly didn't notice that while they were frantically taking Sylvia to the hospital, Genevieve was watching them from nearby. Marcus had been blaming himself for days, and it was the first time he had let personal matters affect his work. Sebastian remained silent, his face covered in a layer of frost. No, impossible. That couldn't be Genevieve. Wasn't that woman throwing a tantrum at him? Why would she come to the company? Marcus found Sebastian's current aura truly terrifying. He tentatively called out, "Mr. Harrington?" Mrs. Harrington's funeral arrangements have been completed. The report states Mrs. Harrington passed away half an hour after the accident. Before he could finish, the silent man suddenly grabbed his collar and roared, "I told you to stop talking. Impossible. Genevieve couldn't have died." Sebastian abruptly shoved him away and stumbled outside. Marcus watched his bosses retreating back, seeming to understand something. But it was too late. He sighed deeply, muttering to himself, "Mr. Harrington, if you knew it would come to this, why did you act that way? Mrs. Harrington's body has already been cremated. You'll never find her again." Sebastian didn't believe Genevieve was dead, yet he didn't know where to look for her. He drove aimlessly for a long stretch. A red light appeared ahead. He hit the brakes. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, the hard surface digging painfully into his palms. "Genevieve, where are you?" He knew Genevieve was an orphan, having supported herself through part-time jobs since she was young. She had no relatives. Without him, she had nowhere to go. Sebastian took a deep breath and picked up the constantly vibrating phone beside him. Marcus had sent several messages and pictures Genevieve's death report and cremation certificate. "Mr. Harrington, if you don't believe it, you can go to the traffic police department and request the surveillance footage. They have the complete video of the accident scene, as well as Mrs. Harrington's autopsy report. Mrs. Harrington, she is truly gone. Please accept my condolences." Sebastian's breathing grew heavy. He violently threw the phone onto the passenger seat and floored the accelerator towards the traffic police department. Everything was exactly as Marcus had said. Scene video, death certificate, cremation procedures. No discrepancies, but Sebastian simply refused to believe it. That was Genevieve. She had loved him for 5 whole years. Just days ago, she was trying everything to reconcile with him. How could she just die like that? How could she? A great panic suddenly gripped Sebastian's heart, as if something had instantly gouged a huge hole inside him, leaving an empty void he couldn't fathom. Just as he sat dazed in the empty living room, the hospital called. "Mr. Harrington, Miss Vance is suffering from a sudden severe headache. Painkillers aren't working. Could you please come over now?" Sebastian's gaze flickered. Only then did he remember Sylvia Vance. He pulled himself together and drove back to the hospital. Sylvia's face was deathly pale. Her eyes looked even weaker when she saw the man appear at the door. "Seb, why the sudden headache?" Sebastian walked over and sat on the edge of the bed. Sylvia instinctively shifted closer, leaning against his chest. "It might be a side effect. We'll know more after the test results come back. Weren't you going back to get a change of clothes?" "Where are your clothes?" The man paused, only just remembering the question. Sebastian's dark eyes flickered slightly. He said, "I heard you weren't feeling well and rushed back immediately. I forgot." Sylvia lowered her head, sniffing at him like a kitten, murmuring, "You haven't showered all day. You stink, Seb." Normally, Sebastian would have found this kind of affectionate tone endearing, but today, for some reason, he only felt irritated. He gently pushed the woman off him. He said patiently, "If you're not feeling well, get some sleep, okay?" Sylvia's expression stiffened for a moment, then she naturally clung to his arm again, pursing her lips. "Are you going out again?" Before Sebastian could answer, a knock sounded at the door. A man in a suit walked in, his tone professional. "Good afternoon, Mr. Harrington. I am the lawyer representing Miss Genevieve Stafford during her lifetime, fully handling your divorce proceedings and the management of her assets." Chapter 8. The lawyer presented a stack of documents, placing them in front of Sebastian Harrington. "Mr. Harrington, these are the assets left behind by Miss Stafford before her passing." Sebastian stared intently at the pile of A4 paper, saying nothing. It was Sylvia Vance who reacted strongly, her eyes wide with shock. "Before her passing, Genevieve, The lawyer glanced at her and kindly explained, "Miss Stafford passed away accidentally in a car crash 3 days ago. Based on her full authorization, I have the right to handle the disposition of all her assets. The majority of Miss Stafford's assets have been donated to charitable foundations. The remainder should rightfully be returned to Mr. Harrington. Additionally, given the fact of Miss Stafford's death, the cooling-off period for your divorce has ended, and the marriage is naturally terminated. You are now a free man." After stating this, the lawyer nodded politely. "If you have no further questions, I shall take my leave." Sebastian remained utterly silent, like a soulless shell. "Seb." Sylvia bit her lip, her soft voice comforting. "Since it has already happened, don't be too sad. Genevieve, she wouldn't want to see you like this." The man remained motionless. His naturally lowered hand had clenched into a fist at some point, knuckles white. Sylvia looked at his profile, then thought back to the lawyer's words. So, he had already divorced that woman? Then, why didn't he tell her? Was it because he secretly harbored fantasies, thinking they could still reconcile? Sylvia looked at the man's profile, her heart filled with mixed feelings, yet also a strange sense of exhilaration. What use were fantasies? What use was regret? Genevieve Stafford was dead. Died in that car crash 3 days ago. A faint smile touched Sylvia's lips, vanishing in an instant. She assumed Sebastian's despondency was temporary, that he simply hadn't fully processed the fact that Genevieve is dead. Although they had been married for 5 years, Sylvia had more faith in Sebastian's feelings for her. However, the reality almost made Sylvia grit her teeth in frustration. Although Sebastian stayed with her at the hospital, he became withdrawn and quiet. He would often stare off into the distance, lost in thought for long periods. He stopped shaving, looking disheveled. The dashing, well-groomed man was gone. Sylvia couldn't bear it any longer. Forcing a smile, she said, "Seb, I'm being discharged tomorrow. Why don't you tidy yourself up a bit, and we can go out for a nice meal, okay? I'm so sick of hospital food, I could throw up." The last sentence was filled with playful affection, but Sebastian remained unmoved. His gaze merely shifted slightly as he asked, "Tidy up what?" "Well," Sylvia's smile froze, "take a shower, change your clothes, and maybe do something about your hair and beard." She reached out and poked the man's face, trying to keep her tone light. "Look at you, taking care of me for a few days has turned you into a hobo. Can you bring back that handsome, refined Seb for me?" Sebastian pulled her hand away. The words tumbled out as if by instinct. "Genevieve used to prepare all my clothes. She had a great sense of style, which suit went with which tie. She also liked the Terre de Hermes aftershave. It smells good." For the past 5 years, Sebastian had grown accustomed to Genevieve's care, from daily meals to company projects. That woman had permeated his life like air, omnipresent, but just like that, she was dead. Before dying, she hadn't left him a single word. Sylvia's face turned pale. She looked up at him in disbelief. "So what are you trying to say now? Genevieve is gone. No matter how much you talk about her, she won't hear you, do you understand?" She gripped Sebastian's arms tightly, forcefully, as if trying to wake him up. "You should focus on your current life. Seb, the person beside you is me. So what if Genevieve is dead? I'm still here, what are you planning to do? Break up with me, or go join her in death?" Chapter 9. Seeing the woman become increasingly agitated, Sebastian's eyes showed little emotion. He gave a self-deprecating smile. "Sylvie, I wasn't thinking anything. I just need time to sort out my feelings. That day, if I had just walked over and taken a look, I would have found the seriously injured Genevieve. I could have bought her some time, she wouldn't have died. We both owe her." After saying this, Sebastian gently pushed Sylvia away again. The movement was light, even gentle, but the words spoken were so cruel. "Sylvie, I'll have someone pick you up from the hospital tomorrow. You're mostly recovered. There are matters at the company waiting for me. Rest well." "Seb." Sylvia tried to grab him, but only caught the hem of his clothes. Panic uncontrollably gripped her heart. "Seb, please don't go, okay?" The man didn't turn back, striding out of the hospital room with his long legs. According to Sylvia's plan, since Genevieve was dead, Sebastian should have taken her back to the South Bay villa, meticulously planned a proposal with a diamond ring, a priceless wedding gown, and a grand wedding. But not only did Sebastian fail to do this, he became lost in guilt towards Genevieve, unable to extricate himself. After that day, she hadn't seen him again. Sylvia waited for a week, growing increasingly restless. Finally, she decided to go directly to Harrington Corp to corner him. For 3 consecutive days, she didn't even catch a glimpse of Sebastian. "Where on earth is your Mr. Harrington? I'm his girlfriend, let me in." The receptionist didn't recognize her and found her words amusing. Are women these days really this desperate? If you were really Mr. Harrington's girlfriend, would you need me to contact him for you? "Miss, if you don't have an appointment, please leave quickly and don't disturb our work. Otherwise, it won't look good when I call security." Sylvia was about to argue further when her eyes caught sight of Marcus Miller emerging from inside. She immediately ran over. "Marcus, where is Sebastian?" Marcus was startled by the figure suddenly appearing before him. "Miss Vance." He greeted her, then sighed. "Mr. Harrington is not in the company." Sylvia hadn't rested well for days. Her skin looked terrible and her eyes were bloodshot. She had no other options. Julian didn't want her. If she couldn't even hold onto Sebastian now, what would become of her future? Sylvia clung to Marcus like a lifeline, afraid he would run away. Then, where is he? Marcus felt sorry for her, and besides, given Mr. Harrington's current state, perhaps having someone who could persuade him would be good. Mr. Harrington should be at Mrs. Harrington's grave in the cemetery. If you want to find him, Miss Vance, you could try looking there. The city's largest cemetery was in the southern suburbs. Sebastian had been coming here for days, bringing alcohol, just sitting quietly, occasionally murmuring a few words to the person in the photograph. It was tragically ironic. When Genevieve was alive, he barely spared her a glance. Now that she was dead, he spent his days reminiscing with a photograph. "Genevieve, don't you think I'm ridiculous?" The woman in the photo smiled slightly, as if agreeing with him. Sebastian looked down, the self-mocking curve of his lips growing increasingly bitter. He raised the bottle and desperately gulped down the alcohol. Suddenly, a hand reached out and snatched the whiskey bottle from him, scolding angrily. "If you really don't want to live, then just die. At least people might think you died for Genevieve. What's the point of putting on this half-dead act? Who are you showing?" Chapter 10, Sebastian looked up. It was his friend, Wesley Ashton. He snorted dismissively and reached for the bottle. "You have too much time on your hands today. What brings you here to meddle in my business?" "If I didn't come meddle, were you planning to drink yourself to death here?" Wesley kicked him irritably, glancing at the bottle the man had snatched back. "Do you even know the proof of that stuff? Drinking like this, how many lives do you think you have?" He had been in Europe on business for a month. Upon returning, he heard about Sebastian and Genevieve. A perfectly fine couple, torn apart like this because of some woman who popped up out of nowhere. It truly left one speechless. Wesley had initially intended to beat Sebastian up, but seeing him in this wretched state, he felt he couldn't bring himself to do it. Sebastian's eyes were already somewhat glazed. Alcohol temporarily eased his pain. Most importantly, wheeze. He stared at the bottle in his hand, his voice hoarse. "Did you know? Every time I drink, I can see her." "Wesley, she says she doesn't blame me, tells me to live well." Wesley sneered. "You're really imagining things." Sebastian took another swig from the bottle, saying faintly, "I know I wronged her. I didn't value her love enough before. Even her death, I bear inescapable responsibility." "So you atone like this?" Wesley looked down at him, gritting his teeth. "If I were Genevieve, seeing you in this drunken state, I just wish you'd get lost. Don't insult my resting place." The man froze, the pain in his eyes gradually spreading. "Is that so? What else could it be?" Wesley grabbed his collar with both hands, pulling him up. "Do you think you're repenting right now?" "No, you're just trying to make yourself feel better." Stop blaming everything on Genevieve. She never asked you to do anything. It was all your own doing. You're doing this for yourself. Sebastian let himself be dragged, seemingly becoming an empty shell. He turned his head to look at the woman in the photo, familiar yet strange. At this moment, he suddenly realized he seemed to have never truly understood her. Wesley shoved him away forcefully, his own emotions equally complex. He and Sebastian were childhood friends, so naturally, he knew everything about Genevieve. When Genevieve first pursued Sebastian, it was practically public knowledge. After they got together, Wesley had even teased Sebastian. It's not easy to meet a woman this sincere in a lifetime. Settle down properly, you two will grow old together. And what happened? As soon as that Vance woman returned, he messed everything up, costing Genevieve her life. Didn't you really like that Sylvia Vance? If you're happy taking on her baggage, then you should go live your happy life. Don't try to have it both ways. Acting virtuous after doing wrong, Sebastian remained motionless, his slumped figure seemingly shrouded in an inescapable shadow. After a long while, his low, hoarse voice finally emerged. I also thought I didn't love her. He thought he was just used to it, used to Genevieve's presence, used to Genevieve's care. As long as Genevieve was there, all complex problems could be solved. But when she was gone, he realized her shadow was in every corner. He feared seeing her, yet yearned to see her. I regret it. Sebastian ran a hand roughly through his hair, his voice incredibly hoarse. Wheeze, I really regret it. It's all my fault. If I could trade my life for hers, would she come back? Wesley had never seen Sebastian like this before. The harsh words he had prepared got stuck in his throat. He sighed deeply and sat down beside Sebastian. Saying all this is useless crap. If you truly cared about her even a little bit, you should finish what she left unfinished, live properly, and be a decent human being from now on. Also, I watched the surveillance footage from your company entrance. Don't you find it strange? Sebastian abruptly looked up. What do you mean? The car crash was suspicious. Wesley frowned slightly, knowing Sebastian was too caught up in the situation to see clearly. He pointed it out directly. Such a large intersection, 2 lanes each way. Genevieve was driving normally. Why would a car crash specifically into hers? Sebastian's Adam's apple moved. He fell into a long silence. Not long after, Wesley received a call from his company. Seeing Sebastian's mood had stabilized, he said, wallowing in misery is useless. If Genevieve were alive, she would only feel her past efforts were even more worthless. Think carefully about what you should do next. Once Wesley left, the cemetery fell silent again. Sebastian turned to look at the tombstone, the turbidity in his eyes gone. Genevieve, can you show me the way? The wind rustled through the trees. No one answered him. Less than 10 seconds later, footsteps approached from nearby. Sebastian's heart suddenly started pounding violently. An inexplicable expectation surged within him. After a moment, his stiff neck slowly turned. Sylvia Vance clearly saw the light flicker in his eyes, then extinguish. Her breathing grew uneven, but she tried her best to compose herself, walking over. Marcus said you might be here, so I came to see. Sebastian averted his gaze. Didn't I tell you to rest well? Honestly, he didn't quite know how to face Sylvia right now. Love. Yes, love. He was certain he had been thinking about her for the past few years. But after Genevieve's departure, things that were once clear seemed to blur instantly. Even he couldn't distinguish who he truly loved. Sylvia placed the flowers she brought before the tombstone, her voice soft. I never really looked at her properly before. Only today did I realize Genevieve was very beautiful. Sebastian replied instinctively, she was always beautiful. Sylvia's face paled slightly. She awkwardly changed the subject. Seb, you must have been here for a long time, right? Shouldn't you be heading back? Seeing the man's questioning gaze, she smiled and added, it's too cold here. What if you catch a cold? Only then did Sebastian notice Sylvia was thinly dressed. He frowned. Why are you wearing so little? You just got out of the hospital. You need to be careful. Sylvia's eyes reddened at his concern, her tone aggrieved. I was worried about you too. Let's go back together, okay? Sebastian had intended for her to leave first. Looking at her haggard face, he ultimately couldn't bear to refuse. All right, let's go back together. Once in the car, Sebastian remembered Wesley's words earlier and casually asked, Sylvie, do you remember what happened during the car crash that day? He remembered clearly. Sylvia's car had lost control and veered into the oncoming lane because someone had bumped her. Sylvia paused, surprised he would suddenly ask this. I was too panicked at the time, I don't remember anything. Why, what's wrong? Sebastian turned to glance at her. Her startled expression amused him. He reached out and patted her head. Thinking about it scares you again. It's okay, I was just asking casually. If you don't remember, forget it. Anyway, the traffic police still had the surveillance footage. He could get a copy and watch it slowly. Sylvia looked at his thoughtful expression, feeling inexplicably uneasy. Are you suspecting? Someone intentionally hit me? Just a suspicion. The man's voice was deep. Wesley reminded me just now. That road is very wide, and there have never been any accidents there before, but that day involved multiple cars colliding. Genevieve was gone, and Sylvie was seriously injured. Yet others were completely unharmed. Thinking about it carefully, it did warrant scrutiny. Sylvia murmured an "oh." Her eyes, flickering in the sunlight, were hard to read. Only her soft voice could be heard. That's unlikely. Who would do something so thankless? Sebastian just smiled, not answering. He didn't want to burden her with conspiracy theories. Sylvie had always been innocent. She should stay that way. Silence descended for the rest of the drive. Sebastian dropped Sylvia off at her place. Go back and rest well. Call me if you need anything. Take care of your health first, okay? Sylvia nodded. Where are you going? I need to stop by the traffic police department. Sebastian unbuckled his seatbelt, got out, walked around the car to the passenger side, and opened the door for her. Be good, Sylvie. Once I get this sorted out, we'll be together properly. Sylvia got out, her loose hair hiding her expression. She said softly, drive carefully. Sleep early, good night. Sylvia stood by the roadside, watching the two lines of taillights recede into the distance. Her fingers gripped her bag strapped tightly, unnoticed even by herself. Get this sorted out, and then be together properly. But if you really do get it sorted out, perhaps we can never be together again. Chapter 11, Sebastian reviewed all the available video footage again, including cameras from the company building entrance and nearby businesses across the intersection. The problem now was that the van that hit Sylvia's car had fake license plates. After the accident, the driver saw the situation was bad and immediately fled. He still hadn't been found. After hearing Sebastian's suspicions, the police officer's expression immediately turned serious. Mr. Harrington, rest assured, we will immediately transfer the case to the Criminal Investigation Department and have them investigate thoroughly as soon as possible. Okay, thank you for your hard work. Sebastian dragged his exhausted body home. Dusk had already fallen. The dim villa was utterly silent, frighteningly so. Only then did he belatedly realize ever since bringing up the divorce, Genevieve had systematically removed all traces of herself from his life. Whether at home or at the company, nothing related to her could be found anymore. Sebastian stood like a soulless puppet in the center of the living room. Finally, amidst the eerie silence, he covered his face and broke down completely. Time passed day by day. Half a year flew by in the blink of an eye. The perpetrator of the car crash was finally caught, but he was just the owner of an abandoned auto plant. The reason he fled was because he was driving a car with fake plates. Although there was a result, it wasn't what Sebastian wanted. Sylvia comforted him. Isn't this good? Did you really hope to uncover something sinister? This crash was just an accident. The driver has paid the price. Seb, let's look forward together, okay? For the past 6 months, Sebastian still showed concern for her and occasionally dined with her, but he never defined their relationship. Sylvia was going crazy if she had known this would be the outcome. What was the point of doing so much after returning? Sebastian pinched the bridge of his nose and said heavily, Sylvie, you should head back first. I need some quiet time. Sylvia had no choice but to leave resentfully, but she had already made a secret decision. There was an important reception in 2 days. Sebastian had already said he would take her. At that time, she would make him declare her identity in front of everyone as his fiancée. The reception was hosted by Davenport Corp., inviting only the rich and powerful, encompassing almost the entire city's upper echelon. Sylvia dressed up extravagantly early on, waiting for Sebastian to pick her up. At 7 in the evening, the doorbell rang outside. She excitedly went to open the door, but it was Marcus Miller outside. Sylvia's expression changed slightly. Where is your Mr. Harrington? Miss Vance, Mr. Harrington had a project meeting with Mr. Davenport first. He asked me to pick you up. Oh, I see, Sylvia smiled. Let's go then. She appeared understanding on the surface, but the heart is upset. What matter was so urgent he had to go first? Couldn't he have taken a detour to pick her up? Sebastian, have you really changed? While Sylvia was lost in thought, Sebastian had already arrived at the venue. Harrington Corp and Davenport Corp had a major project collaboration coming up. He arrived early today specifically to discuss project details with Morgan Davenport. A waiter led him to a second-floor lounge, saying politely, "Mr. Harrington, Mr. Davenport is inside." Sebastian nodded and knocked before entering. Seeing him, Morgan Davenport greeted him warmly. "You finally made it. I was just about to call you. Sorry, there was some traffic." "Just kidding, have a seat." Both men were straightforward. After exchanging pleasantries, they dove straight into business, discussing potential issues with the project. Morgan smiled and said, "I've never had any worries cooperating with Mr. Harrington. But this time, I've also invited a friend to join us." "I hope you don't mind," Sebastian replied. "I certainly have no objection to a friend of Mr. Davenport's." "It's fine, I knew it." Morgan clapped his hands, clearly pleased. "Rest assured, he's been a leader in the industry abroad. I had a hard time persuading him to come back this time. I'll introduce you two later." "Good, I look forward to it." With the important matters discussed, Sebastian glanced at his watch. "It's about time. Mr. Davenport, I'll head downstairs first. See you later." Exiting the lounge, he took out his phone, intending to call Sylvia. His gaze inadvertently swept across the corner ahead. Sebastian's pupils dilated abruptly. He couldn't believe his eyes. Chapter 12. For the past 6 months, Sebastian had dreamt of that person every night, so even if it was just a fleeting glimpse, he could recognize her. While he stood stunned, the woman had already disappeared. Sebastian couldn't care about anything else. He immediately gave chase. Genevieve, it had only been a moment, and she wasn't far, yet the woman vanished as if into thin air. Sebastian stood at the end of the corridor, looking left and right, unsure which way to go. His breathing was rapid, his chest heaving violently. "Genevieve, I know it's you. Come out. Come out, let's talk face to face and clear things up. Genevieve. Please come out." Echoes reverberated down the long, empty corridor. No one answered. A waiter downstairs heard the commotion and hurried up. Seeing Sebastian's disheveled state, he was startled and asked with concern, "Sir, do you need help?" Sebastian glanced at him. "Did you see a woman in a white dress? About 5'6", wavy hair, very elegant." The waiter paused. "Downstairs." Before he could finish, the man in front of him vanished like a gust of wind. The waiter was even more baffled. "I was going to say, there are many ladies like that downstairs." At this moment, Sebastian had stopped thinking. Only one thought consumed him: find her, find her. No matter how long she had hidden, no matter her purpose for appearing today, he absolutely would not let her escape again. Many guests had already arrived in the ballroom downstairs. People mingled, exchanging greetings and pleasantries. Sebastian's bloodshot eyes scanned the crowd, but he couldn't find the person he was looking for. Someone who knew him came up to greet him, but he ignored them completely. After an unknown amount of time, just as Sebastian was about to give up, his gaze suddenly fixed on the dessert table. A woman in a white gown stood there, her long black curls cascading over her shoulders. Although her back was turned and her face hidden, he inexplicably knew who she was. His heartbeat gradually quickened. Sebastian's fingertips trembled slightly. After a long moment, he finally lifted his feet and walked towards her. "Genevieve." As he called out the name, the woman turned around. "Can I help you?" Sebastian looked at the completely unfamiliar face before him and instinctively took half a step back. How is it not her? Impossible. His incredulous expression struck Felicity Sterling as utterly bizarre. She secretly rolled her eyes, speechless. "Mister, can you please speak clearly? If there's nothing else, I'll be going. My brother is waiting for me." Sebastian was still reeling from the shock and didn't answer. Felicity gave him an undisguised up-and-down look before taking her cake and leaving. Returning to the VIP lounge, she placed the plate on the coffee table, plopped onto the sofa, and complained, "Bro, was that the kind of guy Ginny used to like? He looks like he's not all there." The man on the sofa was looking at files on his laptop and didn't have time for her. Bro, Felicity walked over and snatched the laptop away. I'm talking to you. The man's exquisite features were almost demonic, sharp and deep, a mix of righteous and wicked. He frowned slightly. Give me the laptop. Then pay attention to me. Julian Sterling shot her an indifferent look, saying nothing. Felicity still felt a little intimidated. She sulkily returned the laptop, muttering under her breath, "Aren't you curious? I heard Ginny used to like him so much. He looks okay, I guess, and his voice is nice. But in my opinion, that guy's a total airhead. Can't hold a candle to even a single strand of your hair." She rattled on, and only at this point did Julian lazily acknowledge her. Exactly. Things that are clearly no match for me, I never pay them any mind. Cocky. Felicity pouted and sat down beside him. Suddenly, she leaned closer with a smile. But seriously, do Ginny and I really look that similar? I just walked past him, and it completely threw that Harrington guy for a loop. Julian hummed in agreement. You'd better not mention this to your sister Ginny. Careful, she might smack you. Felicity and Genevieve were similar in height and build. With a little imitation of her aura, their backs looked identical. No fun. Felicity propped her chin on her hand and sighed. I thought we could have some exciting revenge on the scumbag drama, but alas, Ginny's too kind. She'd never do that. Julian chuckled softly, his already handsome face becoming even more breathtaking. She's not kind. Then what is she? Lazy. Felicity blinked, then pouted. You understand Ginny best, but how come you haven't managed to win her over after all this time? Chapter 13, Julian's expression stiffened. He casually grabbed a throw pillow and tossed it at her. You little minx, always touching a raw nerve, huh? Felicity finally scored a point, laughing so hard she doubled over. Downstairs, Sebastian snapped back to reality, wanting to chase after the woman to ask questions. Just as he took a step, his arm was grabbed by the newly arrived Sylvia Vance. Seb, I called your name several times just now. How come you didn't hear me? Sebastian looked at the hurt expression on her face and felt a pang of guilt. Sorry, Sylvie, I just saw someone I knew and thought I'd go say hello. What acquaintance could capture his attention so completely? Sylvia was suspicious but maintained an understanding facade. Then let's go together. Mr. Lee was just asking where you were too. We can see him at the same time. Sebastian frowned, but thinking about how little time he had spent with Sylvia recently, he felt guilty and suppressed the earlier thought for now. All right, let's go. After a round of greetings, Sylvia was practically beaming. In elite circles, people excelled at flattery and speculating about the women accompanying powerful men. Her status was already an open secret. Miss Vance and Mr. Harrington make such a lovely couple. Are wedding bells ringing soon? Don't forget to send us an invitation. Such comments were endless, and Sebastian didn't deny any of them. Just as she was secretly rejoicing, Morgan Davenport, today's host, emerged with a wine glass. After exchanging pleasantries with the crowd, he walked straight towards Sebastian. Sebastian, I've been looking everywhere for you. Remember I said I'd introduce you to a friend? Sebastian smiled faintly. Wouldn't I have to wait for Mr. Davenport to finish his duties first? Morgan laughed heartily. Let's go, he's over there. No one objected, so Sylvia linked her arm through Sebastian's and went along. She had been inwardly pleased, but upon seeing the familiar figure, the smile froze on her face. Morgan didn't notice anything amiss, and continued his enthusiastic introduction. This is the industry leader I told you about, Julian Sterling. Julian is a leading figure in intelligent AI overseas. His company's tech RD has won countless patents. Whether it's drones or derivative developments, they're practically at the top. If it weren't for our connection, plus my persistent invitations, he really wouldn't have come back to get involved in our little ventures here. Julian raised an eyebrow, saying modestly, Mr. Davenport exaggerates. It would be my honor to join forces with you. All right, you. Morgan laughed and patted his shoulder. We're friends, no need for such formalities. Sebastian remained silent, his intense gaze fixed on the man opposite him. He never expected Morgan's friend to be Julian Sterling. Why did he suddenly return to the country? Could it be? Sebastian's gaze shifted slightly to the side. The woman in his line of sight was pale, her face filled with disbelief. Sylvia gripped his arm tightly, her force so strong it seemed she had forgotten his presence. At this point, Morgan also noticed something was off, his eyes darting between them. Julian, Sebastian, What, do you know each other? Julian looked at the two opposite him with a half smile. Mr. Harrington and I were schoolmates, I suppose. Not close, but we do know each other. As for Miss Vance here, his smile widened. We were good friends for a while. Morgan was sharp. He understood immediately. Since that's the case, I should leave you old friends some time to catch up. He chuckled twice and signaled a waiter to bring drinks. I need to go greet guests anyway. You chat first. We'll talk business later. Once Morgan left, an awkward silence fell over the lounge. Sylvia felt as if the air had thinned. Unable to bear it any longer, she looked up at the man before her. Gritting her teeth, she asked, "Why are you here?" Julian's demeanor was lazy. "If Miss Vance can be here, why can't I? Weren't you in the States? Didn't you say you'd never come back? Then you should have stayed there properly. Why show your face in front of me again?" As Sylvia spoke, her eyes reddened. She remembered the past, remembered how this man had rejected her back then. He said he didn't love her, and just like that, he didn't. Now he returned without a word. Did he think she would still shamelessly cling to him? Chapter 14, Sylvia was filled with resentment, unaware that her appearance only evoked confusion and amusement in Julian's eyes. "Miss Vance, are you perhaps misunderstanding something? I returned purely for business. If I hadn't run into you here today, I wouldn't even have known you were in the city." Julian curled his lip, perfectly embodying the image of a roguish, wealthy young master. "Besides, there's someone standing right next to you. So eager to declare your lingering feelings for me. Isn't that rather impolite?" Only then did Sylvia realize she was still clinging to Sebastian's arm. Her face flushed, then paled. Her heart trembled slightly as she whispered, "Seb." Sebastian showed little reaction, his dark eyes like bottomless pits, revealing none of his thoughts. He patted Sylvia's hand reassuringly and looked up at Julian. "I didn't expect Mr. Sterling to be Mr. Davenport's friend, but this way is good too. At least we won't need to waste any more words explaining, wouldn't you agree?" Julian spread his hands, looking intrigued. "Since Mr. Harrington puts it that way, then of course. As for past matters," Sebastian narrowed his eyes, his voice deep. "It's over. There's no need for Mr. Sterling to make things difficult for Sylvie over it." "Make things difficult?" Julian chuckled softly, his deep gaze lingering on Sylvia for a moment. That look pierced Sylvia like a thorn, making her heart panic uncontrollably. What was Julian planning? However, her worry was unnecessary. Julian said nothing further, quickly shifting the conversation to the project. When discussing work, both men switched to professional mode, speaking articulately. Sylvia sat to the side, watching these two, the two most important men in her life, feeling like she was sitting on pins and needles. After about 15 minutes, the work discussion wound down. Just as Sebastian was about to leave with Sylvia, the lounge door pushed open from the outside. A girl in a white gown entered, one hand holding her skirt, her expression lively and cute. "Bro, are you done yet? These parties are so boring. Ginny's here to pick us up. She's already arrived. Can we go home now?" Only then did she notice the two strangers in the room. Sebastian and Sylvia were also looking at her. It was her. Sebastian thought of the back view he'd seen earlier, his breathing slightly uneven. Sylvia, on the other hand, felt a wave of relief. She had always known Julian had a spoiled younger sister with a bit of a temper, used to getting her way. Since she came to fetch Julian, he would definitely leave. Finally, this excruciatingly awkward situation could end. Julian took a step forward, neatly blocking Sebastian's view. A polite but distant smile on his face, he said, "Mr. Harrington, let's leave it here for today. We'll take our leave first. We can arrange another time to chat in detail with Mr. Davenport." Shortly after Julian and Felicity left, Sebastian suddenly snapped back to reality. Shaking off Sylvia's hand, he rushed out. "Wait, that woman just now said, Ginny, Genevieve." Only this thought echoed in Sebastian's mind. But by the time he frantically reached the entrance, all he saw was the stream of traffic on the road. The Sterling siblings were nowhere in sight. Sebastian tilted his head back, breathing heavily. He stood by the roadside for a long while, overwhelmed by a flood of emotions. Was he going crazy? Why? Did he keep feeling like she was still alive? Sebastian gave a bitter smile and turned dejectedly back inside. Just at that moment, in a car driving past behind him, was the unmistakable smiling face of Genevieve Stafford. Chapter 15, Genevieve drove, listening to Felicity recount the amusing events of the party. Seriously, those people are so boring. Just endless flattery, trying to curry favor, right? But the desserts were delicious. Oh dear, I meant to bring you back a small cake, I forgot. The light turned red ahead. Genevieve hit the brakes and glanced at her. Smiling, she said, I already had dinner. If you liked it, maybe we can go just for dessert next time. Felicity nodded eagerly, blurting out, Ginny, you're the best. I saw that loser today. He's not even fit to shine your shoes. The words hung in the air, and silence fell in the car. Felicity realized her mistake, closing her eyes and lightly slapping her own mouth. The smile faded from Genevieve's face. The light turned green, and she turned back to focus on driving. Julian frowned at his sister. Just as he was about to speak, the woman in the driver's seat said calmly, There's no fit or unfit. Those experiences were the price I paid for my own earnestness. So now, she didn't love Sebastian Harrington, and she had no regrets. Felicity quickly added, Yes, Ginny is the coolest. Genevieve found her amusing. You don't have to be so careful. Since I decided to come back, I knew I'd run into Sebastian sooner or later. It's not a big deal. Felicity and Julian exchanged a glance, then quickly looked away again, a silent understanding passing between them. Genevieve was indeed prepared to meet Sebastian again, but she hadn't expected it to happen so soon. Over the weekend, after finishing all his work, Julian asked her to see a newly released movie. It's a Hong Kong thriller, getting good reviews. You should like it. Genevieve had just returned from her run, still sweaty. Let me go upstairs and shower first. Wait for me a bit. Julian nodded and held out his hand. Genevieve naturally handed him her towel, took a step, then asked, What about Fliss? Isn't she coming with us? Julian's eyes flickered slightly. She made plans with friends for a spa day. Felicity had always been abroad. What friends could she possibly have here? Genevieve raised an eyebrow but didn't expose him. I'll be quick. 15 minutes. As the woman's graceful figure disappeared around the corner, Julian looked down at the towel in his hand, a devastatingly handsome smile spreading across his face. He was never one to rush things. Letting her gradually get used to him like this seemed rather nice. Genevieve came downstairs punctually. The man waiting below had also changed clothes. His inner shirt coincidentally matched the color of her jacket. She raised an eyebrow lightly, teasing as she walked, on purpose. Julian didn't actually know what she would wear, but he still raised his eyebrows and said, A pursuer's professional dedication. Don't expose my little tricks. Genevieve inwardly marveled. With Julian's face, even if he claimed the moon appeared during the day, every woman would probably nod in agreement. No wonder Sylvia Vance had been so obsessed with him back then. Julian had booked tickets at the nearest cinema. In the early evening, the mall was crowded. He checked his watch and asked softly, We can grab a late snack after the movie. Are you hungry? Genevieve smiled helplessly. Mr. Sterling, we just had dinner about 2 hours ago. Oh, Julian feigned sudden realization. He leaned closer. Then, dear Miss Stafford, may I inquire if you require a cup of milk tea, or perhaps a slice of cake, or maybe a bucket of popcorn? Such affected words, yet when spoken by him, carried a strangely coaxing and captivating quality. Genevieve couldn't help but smile, playing along. No thank you, sir. I'm on a diet recently. Miss Stafford is naturally beautiful, gorgeous as a flower. Why would you need to diet? Support my business, please. All right, you. Genevieve couldn't keep up the act, laughing and lightly swatting his arm. Julian's smiling eyes lingered on her for 2 seconds before he slowly stepped back. As her vision cleared, Genevieve's smile hadn't yet faded when she looked up and saw the grim-faced man and the stunned woman opposite them. Sebastian Harrington, Sylvia Vance, long time no see. Chapter 16, Julian noticed her change in expression and asked with concern, What's wrong? Following her gaze, he also saw the two individuals. He chuckled softly, casually tucking one hand into his pocket, reverting to his lazy, nonchalant demeanor. Mr. Harrington, Miss Vance, what a coincidence. Sebastian ignored him, his bloodshot eyes fixed solely on Genevieve. It really was her, she was alive. Sebastian suddenly felt his heart, dead for over half a year, finally beat vividly again. His Adam's apple bobbed. The next second, he strode towards Genevieve, grabbed her hand, and started pulling her aside. Julian's gaze sharpened. Before he could react, he heard the woman's calm voice. "Let me talk to him." "Wait for me." The hand he had started to raise lowered again. He remained nonchalant, seemingly indifferent. Sylvia was left standing there, her face flushing red then white, unsure how to react. She didn't want to face Julian alone, especially not now. She had seen everything his interaction with that woman just now. Sylvia had chased after Julian for so long back then. He had always been casual and indifferent. When had he ever put in the effort to amuse a woman like he did today? But why Genevieve? Anyone but her Sylvia had to admit she was practically consumed by jealousy. Julian observed the changes in her expression, crossing his arms with a half-smile. "Is Miss Vance worried about Mr. Harrington?" "Don't worry, our Genevieve isn't interested in him." "Our Genevieve?" Sylvia dug her nails fiercely into her palm. "Are you and Genevieve together?" Julian's brow twitched slightly, but he didn't answer. "Julian, you bastard." Sylvia hated his attitude, yet felt utterly helpless. She took a deep breath, forcing herself not to dwell on the past. "Since you're already with Genevieve, why didn't you stay nicely in the States? Why come back?" Julian looked at the face before him. He hadn't looked closely when they were together before. Now he realized she was quite unattractive. He narrowed his eyes, his voice betraying no emotion. "Why, is Miss Vance afraid of our return?" Sylvia's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "Nothing." Julian didn't want to elaborate. He simply said, "We came back for business, of course. It has nothing to do with Miss Vance." Seeing him look down at his phone, Sylvia's panic intensified. Just Julian alone was one thing, but Genevieve too. Genevieve wasn't dead, and she was back. What exactly were they planning? "What are you planning?" On the other side, Sebastian was asking Genevieve the same question. The empty corridor was quiet, echoing only the man's deep, hoarse voice. Genevieve looked at his reddened eyes, feeling nothing inside. "None of your business." "How can it be none of my business?" "Genevieve, we were married." Sebastian felt the current her was too unfamiliar, like meeting her for the first time. This feeling left him deeply powerless, as if all his emotions were hitting cotton wool. "Since you weren't dead, why didn't you contact me? Do you know how long I looked for you?" "Genevieve, you weren't like this before." Genevieve would inform him in advance about everything she did. He, on the other hand, hadn't cared much. "You said it yourself, that was before." Genevieve stated the fact coldly. "Sebastian Harrington, our marital relationship no longer exists. Whether I'm dead or alive, and what I want to do has nothing to do with you." Sebastian's lips moved, taking a long time to form sound. "No, we didn't divorce, but Genevieve Stafford died. Without Genevieve, the marriage naturally ceased to exist." Genevieve found it somewhat amusing. "Didn't you dream of growing old with Sylvia Vance? Now that your dream has come true, why care about what happens to me?" "Oh, wait. Sebastian Harrington, you don't actually care about me. You only care about yourself, about making yourself feel less miserable. Now that you know I'm not dead, you don't need to feel guilty anymore. Do what you're supposed to do. Stop focusing your attention on me." After saying this, Genevieve turned to leave. Sebastian grabbed her hand. "Genevieve?" Genevieve didn't move, glancing at him indifferently. It was this look that actually frightened Sebastian. He subconsciously released her, lowering his voice. "Is there anything you want? I can give you anything. Consider it compensation for our time as husband and wife." Actually, Sebastian had given her plenty initially. But eager to leave him then, she had faked her death, forcing most assets to be donated to charity. However, since he offered, Genevieve looked into his eyes, her voice low and haunting. "I want to find the person who tried to murder me. Are you willing to help me with that too?" Chapter 17, Sebastian paused, surprised she would suddenly bring this up. "I suspected it back then too. But after investigations from all sides, nothing abnormal was found. Besides, the main culprit of the accident was convicted. Genevieve, that crash really was just an accident. Reinvestigating now would be a waste of effort." Although Genevieve had gone abroad, Julian had kept an eye on things back home for her. So she knew Sebastian had investigated the crash. This did surprise her, but only slightly. Seeing her silence, Sebastian's tone grew anxious. "Let the past be the past. Let's start over, okay?" He actually wanted to say, "Let us start over." But looking at the woman's unchanged expression, the words inexplicably got stuck in his throat. Genevieve wasn't aware of his inner turmoil. Expressionlessly, she said, "I know the main culprit was convicted. I also know he behaved well in prison, and his original 1-year sentence was reduced to 7 months. Meaning, he was about to be released. Otherwise, Genevieve wouldn't have chosen this time to return. Sebastian's brow furrowed. You still suspect him? Of course not. Genevieve chuckled softly but didn't elaborate further. Her voice was cool. Sebastian Harrington, although I no longer have feelings for you, I don't hate you either. I will definitely continue investigating. If you're willing to help, great. If not, that's fine too. We go our separate ways, owing each other nothing. The phrase, owing each other nothing, pierced Sebastian's heart like a thorn. He clenched his fist tightly. I will help you. Whatever you want to investigate, I will help you. With that settled, there was nothing more to say. Genevieve emerged from the fire escape first, not even glancing at Sylvia Vance, and said directly to Julian, "Let's go in quickly, the movie is starting." Julian's eyes softened. All right. Their figures looked harmonious together, like a perfectly matched pair. Sylvia watched them enter the cinema until they disappeared, nearly biting her lip raw. After getting the tickets, the timing was perfect. Genevieve and Julian joined the crowd entering the theater. Even without looking, she could feel the person beside her occasionally glancing her way, hesitant to speak, his curiosity practically written on his face. Genevieve found it amusing and sighed. Just ask whatever you want to ask, Mr. Sterling. What did he say to you? Said he didn't expect me to be alive, asked why I didn't contact him since I wasn't dead. What did you say to him? I told him it was over between us, that whether I was dead or alive was none of his business. Julian fell silent for 2 seconds. An almost imperceptible sigh escaped his lips. He gently poked the woman's cheek, saying helplessly, "Speak properly, don't keep using that word." Genevieve feigned innocence. "But that's genuinely what we said." And Genevieve didn't hide anything, telling him she had mentioned her plan to investigate the car crash to Sebastian. Julian frowned, slightly worried. "Aren't you afraid he'll tell Sylvia Vance? Whether she was involved or not, she's a huge variable." "I'm counting on him telling her." Genevieve's expression was calm. "If it really was Sylvia, knowing we're investigating will make her anxious. She won't sit idly by. Action reveals mistakes." They were struggling to find evidence, weren't they? Julian turned to look at her profile, captivatingly beautiful in the dim light. This was Genevieve. Seemingly detached, but actually vengeful. Kindness and unkindness towards her would both be repaid twofold. He curved his lips slightly, whispering, "All right. Since Miss Stafford is so clever, I'll gladly handle the logistics. You just fly, I'll protect you." His pleasant voice was right beside her ear. Genevieve's heart skipped a beat unexpectedly. Chapter 18, Sebastian somehow found out where Genevieve lived and started sending gifts relentlessly, every day various flowers, bags, pastries. Even lawyers showed up directly, proposing to transfer property deeds to her. Initially, Genevieve would politely refuse. Later, discovering that the more she refused, the more persistent the man became, she simply let him be. But Felicity Sterling was miserable. Although Ginny wasn't working, she kept up her daily exercise and outings. Felicity was the only idle one left, feeling like a glorified parcel dispatcher. One day, Julian had just returned home when Felicity walked in, carrying a large bouquet of Freud roses. She casually tossed them onto the floor. "Bro, can't you do something about this? Did you see? That Harrington guy is being totally shameless. He's pursuing your future wife. Right under your nose. At home, how can you be so nonchalant? Don't you mind at all?" She was seriously getting fed up the first couple of days. The flowers were novel. But day after day, who could stand this constant annoyance? Julian frowned, ignoring her provocations and complaints, simply asking, "Where is she?" "Ginny." Felicity slumped onto the sofa listlessly. "Upstairs. Just finished exercising, probably showering." Julian's eyebrow twitched. He headed upstairs. Genevieve's room was at the southernmost end, not the master suite, but it had better views and light. Julian knocked lightly. The door wasn't locked. He pushed it open and went inside. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. She was indeed showering. He stood in the middle of the room for a moment, debating whether to leave or sit. Choosing the latter, he casually picked up a book from the coffee table and started flipping through it. 1 page, 2 pages. The sound of the water made his heart beat faster and faster. Julian took a deep breath, closed the book, placed it back in its original spot, and was about to leave when the phone on the bed suddenly rang. He turned and walked over. The name, Sebastian Harrington, lit up the screen, his expression darkened. Julian picked up the phone with a sneer, answered. "Genevieve, did you like the flowers today? Are you free tonight? I found a really good restaurant I want to take you to. Genevieve isn't here." The cold voice instantly silenced the other end. Julian leaned casually against the bedpost, looking towards the bathroom. "It seems Harrington Corp is doing quite well. Mr. Harrington has so much free time every day and money to send Ginny so many things. However, our storage room is almost full. Mr. Harrington can stop sending them." Sebastian asked heavily, "Why is it you? Where's Genevieve?" "Ginny's taking a shower." Silence on the other end. Julian asked again, "Does Mr. Harrington have any other message for me to relay?" He hung up. Julian looked at the phone screen, snorting dismissively. When Genevieve came out, she saw this rather childish action and asked with a smile, "Who called?" "Sebastian Harrington." Julian watched the woman's face, seeing no anger before continuing, "I told him to stop sending things. Fliss is getting tired of receiving packages every day." Genevieve murmured an "oh," drying her hair nonchalantly. Julian put down the phone, took the hairdryer from the cabinet, and started drying her hair for her. "You're not angry. Why would I be angry?" Genevieve was puzzled. "I told him long ago, but he wouldn't listen. If your words work, that's obviously for the best." Julian paused, then smiled. After drying her hair, he brought up the real business. He told Genevieve, "The driver from back then has been released from prison. See, when you're free, we can go meet him." Genevieve immediately turned her head. "Of course, the sooner the better. Tonight?" "Yes." To avoid complications from delays, Genevieve didn't want to wait a minute longer. The entire breakthrough hinged on that driver. If he was willing to tell the truth, the mastermind couldn't hide anymore. Chapter 19, when Genevieve and Julian arrived at the abandoned auto plant, the sky had completely darkened. A faint light glowed behind the iron gate, looking eerie and desolate. They exchanged a look. Julian stepped forward to knock on the gate. The first sound was a dog barking. Genevieve nervously clenched her fist. The next second, the man who had stepped back took her hand. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." She murmured a soft, "okay," waiting for movement inside. Soon, hesitant footsteps approached. A middle-aged man, not particularly tall, dressed in black, opened the gate. Seeing the two people outside, he instinctively froze. Just as he was about to slam the gate shut, Genevieve quickly stopped him. "Harvey Cole, I know you gave false testimony. I have enough evidence to prove you committed attempted murder. If you don't cooperate with us today, I'll hand everything over to the police immediately. You know you can't run. In this day and age, becoming a fugitive was incredibly difficult." Hearing her words, Harvey Cole immediately became agitated. "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even know you. Leave now." Genevieve stared intently at him, speaking urgently. "I also know you were forced into it. I can help you. You can ask me for whatever you want. Are you planning to live under someone else's thumb like this forever?" Perhaps the last sentence struck a chord with Harvey. His expression flickered for a moment. In that instant, Julian pushed open the iron gate and stepped inside. "Let's talk." Harvey looked at the tall man before him, seemingly left with no choice. Genevieve and Julian worked in perfect sync, playing good cop, bad cop. Using threats and promises, they soon broke Harvey Cole's silence. "That woman promised me $1 million, said with my background, everyone would think it was just an ordinary car accident. Who knew she only gave me $500,000? I spent 7 months in jail. And when I got out, she denied everything, kept putting me off. Does she think I'm stupid?" Seeing Harvey become increasingly agitated, Genevieve's fingers trembled slightly. She opened her social media app, found a photo of Sylvia Vance, and held it in front of him, her voice hoarse. "Was it her?" "Yes, that's her." Harvey's eyes flashed fiercely. He turned and met Julian's cold gaze, immediately shrinking back. "I know, I've told you everything. There's no point looking for me. Even if I hadn't done it, she would have found someone else. The point was to hit you." Sylvia hadn't necessarily wanted Genevieve dead. She had said back then that crippling her would also be acceptable. Julian steepled his fingers, tapping them lightly in rhythm. His unhurried voice carried immense pressure. "I'll give you $2 million to come forward and testify against Sylvia Vance. I want her jailed, but I can give you the money immediately. If you're worried, we can sign a contract and have it notarized by a lawyer. I am a businessman, and businessmen value integrity above all." Harvey Cole gaped, clearly hesitant. Genevieve's emotions had also calmed. She said, "I just want to bring the person who harmed me to justice. Let the punishment fit the crime. I won't target you, but I sincerely hope you can help me." Harvey looked at the two people before him and finally nodded. "Leaving the abandoned auto plant," Genevieve said. "Sylvia probably didn't intend to break her promise. She just didn't expect Sebastian to be unwilling to marry her immediately after my death, so she couldn't come up with that much cash right away." Julian cast an appreciative glance at her. "Clever, so what do we do now? Confront her directly?" "No need." Julian calmly took a recording pen from his pocket. "This is enough. Let the police handle the rest. You don't need to deal with such unpleasant people anymore." Chapter 20, with the evidence secured, Sylvia Vance was quickly arrested. This outcome was completely unexpected for Sebastian Harrington. Marcus Miller recounted the situation. "Miss Vance's final request was to see you. The police might contact you for questioning as well." Just as he finished speaking, the office phone rang. Sebastian looked somewhat dazed. He took a deep breath before answering. "Hello, Mr. Harrington, we need your cooperation regarding a case. Please come down to make a statement." At 4 in the afternoon, Sebastian appeared at the city police headquarters. The police carefully questioned him about the situation, then asked, "Miss Vance wishes to see you. Do you?" He had the right to refuse. Sebastian's eyes were deep and unreadable. He said heavily, "Please arrange it." He also wanted to hear what that woman was thinking. Soon, Sylvia was brought out. Although it had only been a day, she seemed drained of all spirit, looking utterly haggard. Seeing Sebastian, she shouted excitedly, "Seb, I'm innocent, go tell them I didn't do anything." She wasn't paying attention while driving, why should I take the blame? Besides, isn't she alive? Sebastian's brow furrowed tightly. He listened silently to her outburst. Sylvia's emotions gradually calmed. Her eyes were red, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Seb, do you really not care about me at all? You threw away any affection between us yourself." The evidence was conclusive. No matter how Sylvia argued, she faced imprisonment. Sebastian looked at her calmly. "Sylvie, I truly did like you very much back then. And, now, I'm sorry." He couldn't deceive his own heart, just as he couldn't control its beating when he saw Genevieve again. The disappearance and appearance of feelings never followed logic. Sylvia sneered, "You fell in love with Genevieve, so what? Do you think she'll take you back? Let me tell you, Genevieve getting together with you was just a game. She never liked you not one bit. You wouldn't have guessed, right? Genevieve and Julian made a bet. The bet was whether you could truly forget me, Seb. Did you think you were any different from me? We were just their playthings." Sylvia had personally overheard this during a phone call between Julian and Genevieve. Otherwise, she wouldn't have given up on Julian so easily and returned to the country to find Sebastian. That man had only ever loved Genevieve from the start. He was just too proud to admit it. So he pretended to accept her, wanting to provoke Genevieve a little. Who knew Genevieve wouldn't take the bait at all, and even readily agreed to pursue Sebastian. Everything that had happened for so long, it was all a joke. Sebastian didn't know how he walked out of the detention center. The sun shone brightly outside, but he felt no warmth. So, it was all a sham. He thought back on the past 5 years, the self-mocking smile growing wider. Fine, let this be his retribution. Let this be the consequence he deserved for not cherishing her properly. Genevieve was unaware of these developments. After giving her statement at the police station, she returned to the villa to find Felicity had redecorated the place from top to bottom, giving it the vibe of a villa party. Felicity had wanted to invite some friends but worried Genevieve wouldn't like it, so she waited for her return to ask. "Of course, I have no objection. You guys can have fun however you want." "Really?" Felicity's eyes lit up. "I'll go make calls right now." She bounced upstairs. Julian happened to be coming out of the study. His eyes met Genevieve's in the living room and both smiled. "All settled?" "Settled." Genevieve hadn't felt this relaxed in a long time. She thought for a moment and said, "So next, should I return to the States or stay here? I can follow your arrangements." After all, she now worked for Julian's company. He was her direct boss. However, the man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he slowly walked over. "Suddenly talking about work?" "Yes. What if I don't want to talk about work? Julian's deep eyes gazed at her, filled with indescribable affection. He said, word by word, Genevieve, I don't want to talk about work with you. I only want to talk about feelings. Do you want to talk? Genevieve paused, then a faint smile bloomed on her lips. Well, Mr. Sterling can try a little harder then.